This is the Board of Education regular business meeting for which adequate notice under the Open Public Meetings Law was provided by written notice on May 7, 2008 to the Courier News, the Echo Sentinel, the Reporter, the Star Ledger, and the Clerk to the Borough of Watchung and the Townships of Long Hill and Warren. Can I have a roll call?
Mr. Binder?
Yes.
Mr. Fallon?
Yes.
Falzerano? Mrs. Fechner?
Yes.
Mr. Horowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Pepe?
Yes.
Ms. Mandel? Mr. Sun? Dr. Yaget? Dr. Seelig?
Yes. We have a quorum, so we shall proceed forward. Pledge of allegiance. Pledge of allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll start with reports and presentations. We'll start with Dr. Trump.
Thank you, Dr. Seelig. I will defer comments to my summary on CUSAC a little bit later on. Mr. Stiers?
On to Business Minister comments. Go ahead. You're on a roll. Just keep passing to the right.
Hey, Laura.
Well, I have no comments for tonight, Dr. Seelig.
I have no idea.
All right. And I'll fill in. I have no comments at this time either. Student representatives. We have student representatives. Do you have any comments?
Yes, I do.
Who's going to go first?
I'm going to speak first.
Okay.
We have a bonfire coming up on Friday, December 12th or December 19th, depending on when the sports teams are available. So we're going to find out the definite date tomorrow. And that's to really bring in the winter sports and congratulate the fall sports. It's like a pep rally. We are also working with peer leadership to donate toys to the Carrier Clinic, and each student to donate will receive spirit points towards their grade. And we are also doing a door decorating contest for teachers, which is the Monday before we go on winter break, December 22nd.
The All-Student Council is also donating crafts and cards to St. Jude's Hospital for Christmas to give all the kids there. And holiday grams are going to be sold as a fundraiser. This is so friends can send messages to other students, which are delivered with a candy cane. So it's $1. Send a message, send a candy cane to your friends, and it's a good fundraiser for the ASC.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, I mean, St. Jude's a wonderful hospital. It's, I think, in Tennessee, if I'm not mistaken, right? But the only thing, you might want to think about, there are a lot of wonderful hospitals a lot closer to home than St. Jude's Hospital. And the other thing that I'd mention also, this time of year, and needless to say, we're in very difficult, the country, very difficult financial situation. I look at our closets at home, and they seem pretty full. Clothing drive, I mean, especially a coat drive, even making it more specific would be a wonderful thing for the students to. It's pretty easy to organize, and everyone's got an extra winter, jacket or two, and it's tremendous demand. I mean, especially this time of year and this year in particular. So.
Thank you.
You know what, I want to add to that. I've also heard that the food banks are getting very low because people don't have food to give, and there's more people that need food. So that's just another thought there.
Right. Action Against Hunger and Peer Outreach just did a can drive and a clothing drive at our school, and thousands of pounds of food and clothes were donated, which we collected ourselves, which is really good.
What happened was the teacher that gained the most cans, and because cans were worth as many 1, 2, 4 points depending on how big they were, and clothes were used as bombs because they were negative points. So you give clothes to another teacher so that they would lose points, and the teacher with the most points at the end of 2.5 weeks would get $100 Dunkin' Donuts gift card to use for their classes. So this created an incentive for the students, and we raised even more than we did last year. And last year, our school raised the most in the country for this drive, and this year we raised more than we did last year. So it's a very successful.
Why were clothing a minus point.
Well,
It's a,
It's just for fun.
an
Just
incentive.
Oh,
It's like it's just a way to work it.
it wasn't to discourage it, it was to
They-
put
they-
it on
they
the
get a
next
lot of
one,
both.
the other class.
Okay.
So that
And want
the
to
assignment-
sabotage another class. Who won? What teacher won?
Mr. Gang.
Gangster gang class.
It's won for 4 years. So. Mr. Amendola came in second. So.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. We're going to continue on. Fran, do you want to introduce?
Yes, we have 2 courses this evening to present to the board. These courses have gone through the review of the district curriculum committee, the cabinet, and the board curriculum committee. And I'm pleased to invite Darren Mount up to talk about his CAD 2 architecture course.
Hi. The CAD Architecture 2 course is based upon students who have taken CAD Architecture 1, which, just a quick background, is generally residential construction and the use of AutoCAD. What would happen is kids from Architecture 1 would be able to sign up for CAD Architecture 2, which would be generally based around learning the software called Revit, and then learn a little bit more about commercial construction and, more importantly, green construction in residential and commercial construction. And the easiest way to describe it, so you don't have to go through all these pages, is if you're familiar with HGTV and you've ever seen the computer in front of the customer where they can walk through the houses, that's what they will be able to do leaving that course. So the students will learn a new piece of software, apply new skills and knowledge learned in the area of green engineering to actually create models, not only three-dimensionally on the computer, but hopefully physically in the classroom. The beauty of the course is that we have everything we need to run this course. There would be nothing purchased beyond what we have. It would just be, hopefully myself teaching it, and that's pretty much the entire course.
Question?
Short and sweet.
This is an extension of the CAD 1.
Excuse me?
This is an extension of the CAD 1 course.
It's the prerequisite would be CAD Architecture 1, correct?
And you use Revit as the software package?
Correct.
Any possibility of using AutoCAD or moving into AutoCAD?
We have AutoCAD is what they learn in the first year.
That's what you learned
Right,
last year, not
right.
moving into Revit next because it's what, 3D?
Right. It's an extension of, it's an AutoCAD product. It's made by Autodesk.
Oh, I see.
It's just the next level up where you can make presentation files from the real-time, revision software called Revit. Yeah, it's pretty neat. So,
Any questions, other questions? Thank you very much.
okay.
Thank you. Next this evening is our Arts Department Supervisor Judith Mulder to talk about TV studio broadcast journalism. And
Good
again,
evening,
it runs through
everybody.
the same process as the previous course.
The course we're talking about this evening is titled TV Studio Broadcast Journalism, and it's exactly what it says. Students learning a broadcast journalism curriculum and the use of a television studio. They would be, the ultimate goal of the course would be the creation of news programming for broadcast. They would have hands-on experience with pre-production, production, and post-production of news programming. The course has as its prerequisite video production 1, which is currently running in the curriculum, which would ensure that the students have a basic nuts and bolts ability to work a camera. They would understand the vocabulary of camera work, and they would understand the fundamentals of video editing so that they could move directly into a focus on broadcast journalism rather than on documentary film or narrative film. The course would be organized in terms of first learning a little bit how the broadcasting industry works in the United States, then would be learning about, and this is a huge career opportunity, just knowledge base for the students to learn about all the different personnel that it takes to put on a news program in a studio setting. Everything from the program director to an assignment editor to the producer, director, and the floor manager. So they would not only learn about these roles, but then once they pass the unit on using all the equipment in the TV studio to get video, they would then take on these roles themselves and produce news, programming, and commercial information in our TV studio here at Watchung Hills. And that's it. The one unique aspect of the class that I would like to have is the ability for students to take it again as an independent study, so that we constantly have the little red schoolhouse of the more experienced students then taking on roles of responsibility, because that's the way the program grows, and we get a real focused group of students who are going to be working on news programming and other programming that will originate here at the high school.
Any questions?
Two questions. First, we do have this TV studio equipment for.
By the end of this year, we will have all the equipment necessary to run this course from this year's current budget.
The second is, do we have any kind of project for this Watchung Hill community, so the student activities as part of this building assignment for this kind of class?
Well, it would be a news program, not really about, it would be focused on the issues that the students are interested in, and a lot of them would be school-based. For example, they could do reports on school extracurricular activities, school sports, educational issues. It's really got to be student-driven in terms of what they're interested in and what's going on at the time. I've taught a similar course before. I would not be teaching this one. And issues that arose were the idea of an open lunch was a hot issue, and they very respectfully and graciously interviewed the principal of the school and the vice principal of the school and the director of the food service. So they took it very seriously to weigh the pros and cons and present that issue in an interesting broadcast style without bias. So it's fun to see what it is that interests them and let them shape their own news program.
Thanks.
Would some of the interviewing have to be done like after school?
It certainly can be. I've found that adults are usually very accommodating to student schedules and will make the time to come in. And a lot of times if you have more than one section running and someone can't make it for the first time the class meets during the day, the second time the class meets during the day, that crew can conduct the interview or film the speaker. So it does work out, sometimes in the morning, sometimes in the afternoon. But you have a dynamic group of kids that always get interested in broadcasting, and they would be willing to be there to do it whenever they had to do it. You also have the opportunity to edit in location shoots, location interviews, kids taking a camera, now that we'll have the high-quality cameras, to different events and editing that in, really highlighting what's going on here at Watchung Hills from their perspective and their point of view. So it makes for a very wonderful jumping-off point for kids to find out what interests them, to express their interests, and also, like I said before, really opens up a whole avenue of places that they didn't know they can go in for a career. And now they know that these jobs exist. So.
Any other questions?
Hi. The independent study would also be 2.5 credits. Is that the way you?
Yes, if it's a semester-based. It would remain to be seen whether we would want to offer it as a full-year independent study or a semester-based. If it were a full year, it would be.
Described here, repeating the course would be another 2.5 credits.
Yes. But the person repeating the course would not just be sitting in the chair listening and doing again. We would want them to take on responsibility roles in independent projects that would then be added into the news program. An investigative report or something, or an issue-based documentary.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
These are both part of the agenda topic later on. Motion to approve these courses.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. With that, we can move on to, there's been a lot of work done since probably started in June, and even a little bit before that, with regard to the fulfillment of our obligation for the New Jersey self-assessment process that we have to go through, called QSAC. And this is tonight was going to be held on the 14th, and due to the problems we had with the 14th meeting, it's been moved to done tonight, is the summary report of that effort. And this board then gets an opportunity to vote on this later on, to approve it to be submitted then to the state. With that.
Thank you, Dr. Seeley. You received in your packages an executive summary report of CUSAC. Obviously, CUSAC is the state's new monitoring and evaluation system for public school districts, replacing the QAAR, the QAR. It's a single comprehensive accountability system that consolidates and incorporates the monitoring requirements of state law and federal laws. I'd like to say, first off, thank you to the self-assessment review team for Mary Sock, Wayne Lee, Jim Canick, Tom DeGancy, Bev DiGeronimo, Tim Sties, community members Diana Jones, Howard Greenbaum, and of course Paul Seelig, who took a great amount of their time and energy to review the voluminous documents that were part of this review process. Let me just preface this summary also by saying this is a preliminary summary of findings. It will not be an official report until March of '09, when we receive the final report back from the department. In January 27th, we will be visited on site by members of the Department of Ed, the Executive County Superintendent, the Education Program Specialist, and a fiscal program manager to go over the findings that we gathered and to basically test our findings and see if they come up with the same result as we did. We're hopeful that they will. We really did put our true best foot forward, and also a very critical eye to our procedures, operations, and protocols that we use, and try to correct or improve areas that we thought were weak, and looked at processes that we put in place in previous school years to build upon strengths that we were developing in each of those areas. So what I did in the summary was I took each of the areas. That would be the first one. It's a little small, so you're better off looking at your desk. Each of the areas had various point values attached to them. The first area, governance, I broke it down by each of the areas within the DPR, within the objective, and put down the number of points that we identified as possible for us to achieve and the total points that were available. We lost points in one area, standard school board practices, and I put the explanation of the loss of points in each of the areas that we did lose them. And again, this is an area where the board is focusing some professional development activities, so that will be a positive, that will be viewed positively by the executive county superintendent. So that gave us a total score of 89 of a possible 100 points in the area of governance. In the area of personnel, again, a possible 100-point score. Thanks to the intervention of one of our board members who gave me a suggestion to talk to our executive county superintendent about Section 1 about licensed personnel. The reason we were losing 10 points in that section was the fact that the state turnaround time for processing criminal history checks was lengthy. So we were using an emergent hire process to do so. Since we have, that has improved, and the state now turns the information around in 48 hours, and we did not have any emergent hires for this school year. Thanks to Mr. Binder's suggestion, I spoke to Mrs. Doyle, and she said since we have the process in place now and that the area has been corrected, we could take the full credit for that indicator. So we get a perfect score in personnel by our estimation of 100 points. So thank you, Mr. Binder. In the area of fiscal management, again, a good deal of work was done in this area. Tim was the leader in this particular indicator. We lost some points in the areas of area of efficiency. Again, these are sort of arbitrary in the way the state interprets it, but in one case we lost points because some of our classes run below 15 students, and the state does not consider small classes to be necessarily efficient. Our overtime costs were greater than 10%, and that the final area that we lost 3 points for was the fact that we only have 2 students eligible to receive Medicaid, and we requested a waiver to opt out of that program that the state has. Even though our request for waiver was approved, we were still knocked down a few points because we opted not to participate in that semi-program. For 2 students, we would have probably realized a return of about $20, and it would have cost us hundreds of dollars in paperwork. So we think we made the right decision there in terms of efficiency.
Does that mean on efficiency, if we had 100 kids in a class, we get bonus points?
Perhaps, I don't know. I don't think I'd want to try that, though.
The sanity there, Trenton.
Some of it is a little hard to understand and couched in terms of efficiency. The next area, program and instruction, was probably one of the largest areas for us to attack. We had possible 114 points to achieve there. Again, a very strong area for us as well. Student performance, we had a total score of 50 out of 55 points. And the reason for that was that we achieved 96% proficiency in language arts literacy, but a mere 92% in math. And an arbitrary number of 95% was set by the Department of Ed as the cutoff, even though that number 95% is almost 20 points above the set benchmark that we have to achieve. We were knocked down a few points because we didn't get 95% in both areas. The area of curriculum is we lost 1 or 2 points there because we couldn't document integration of instruction across all areas. However, we did find a little, there may be a way to recoup those 2 points because we did find a way in our curriculum mapping software that there may be a way to demonstrate on a bar graph that there is actually articulation in all curricular areas by using this bar graph. And same with instruction. It's a similar, we were basically told by the county superintendent, no one is getting those points, don't think you're going to get them. But we may be able to get them. We're working on a way to do it. The indicator of operations is probably the one that is the most of a hodgepodge. It's a total of 111 points. It sort of takes into account everything else that wasn't covered by the other areas. We lost some points in the area of the facilities, 6 out of possible 15. Again, this is a bit of a catch-22 situation. There is a particular checklist that the county superintendent must view and sign off on, basically stating that the school has met all of the criteria at 100% for the operation of the school. Now, you know, we're in a little bit of an odd situation, is that we're not under the jurisdiction of the local municipality in Warren Township, but we are under the jurisdiction of the DCA. We have not yet received a document from the DCA that says we've met all of those criteria at 100%. However, all of the areas that are within that criteria have been approved by the DCA. So it's a matter of one state agency talking to another state agency in a language that they can both understand and accept. So at this point, we are down the 9 points. Who knows? We may get that reinstated once we get a formal letter from the DCA that the township and that the State Department of Ed will accept. So it's sort of a three-way triangle, none of which we're sort of caught in the middle of that. So anyway, our scores range on CUSAC anywhere from 89 to 100%. So we are well above the necessary 80% in each area to pass the monitoring. And again, this is preliminary. These are our draft findings. We do hope that these findings will be accepted and corroborated by the Department of Ed. But as Paul can attest to, he spent time and energy going through the infamous CUSAC bins that we have of documentation and material that have, I can't even tell you the amount of hours that have gone into this. So I always knew Bev was really, really short, but I didn't realize she had such big feet, because they've been big shoes to step in, taking over this this project in her absence. But it's been a real vigorous and lengthy and arduous process. But I think we're at the end of it, and hopefully January 27th we'll have our findings corroborated.
When do you
Yes.
have to do
Thank
this
you,
again?
It's supposed to be a 3-year cycle.
3 years?
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yes?
Just on the small classroom size.
Yes.
Was that one class, 10 classes, 100 classes?
If you had one class, 15 or
I
under,
understand
you knocked
that.
it off.
Do you know how many we had that fell into that particular category?
Off the top, I can't tell you. It wasn't a big number, but maybe somewhere under 10
Do
classes.
those tend to be more of the elective courses? or
Like
the-
multivariable calculus, they're high-end courses usually.
They're generally the courses that make us an outstanding school.
Yeah, that's the paradox.
Exactly,
Yeah.
What's this called, the Equality Act?
Yeah, it's single. Yeah,
Accountability.
accountability.
I just wanted to-
Single
Inequality,
accountability
yeah.
continuum. Accountability.
Accountability. Any other questions? I can only restate how much effort
Thank you.
the establishment, putting together this material and then all the backup supporting material has been for this staff. To have to do it again in 3 years is a daunting task, because it takes well into 6 months of dedicated effort by a number of people to make this thing actually come to reality. So hopefully we'll retain the bins, and maybe next time won't be quite so much
It's
effort.
very costly because
It
of
is
the
costly.
manpower, and takes it away from things that would really help the school and the students. It's a pity.
It is costly. Pete?
In the opinion of those of you who did all the work, did we learn anything valuable about our school that would help us?
I'll answer that. I think that if you go through the questions, there are good questions in there that can force you into thinking about things perhaps differently, about thinking about things that maybe should be done or could be done. So I think there are some learnings that can be taken away from it like that. I think there are ways to get that learning that are a lot more cost effective than going through the whole process, though. Okay?
Agreed.
Training course on these questions would alone have been just valuable. Getting people just to think about it and say, maybe this is a way to do things better. You know, kind of a best practices learning session might have been very helpful. But to have to go through and then provide 3 years of potential backup data, that is a tremendous amount of effort to pull that information together and to put it in a format so that somebody can actually, you know, hopefully try to get through it and see what there is there. So.
Thank you. I mean, looking at some of the, things that forms had to be filled out, the questions very redundant. I mean, the personnel section, you find that the same question was maybe just a little bit changed, but you had to provide answers and documentation and cite all these things. So, I mean, they could have gotten the same amount of information and insight with 25% of the effort. I mean, because the question was just a small variation of another question. It was.
That was
Could we
certainly.
not push for that, Jerry?
I would imagine a lot of people were probably going to push for it, but I don't know how. I don't even know what the process would be to do that.
And you know,
But-
one thing to add to that is that while we have this snapshot in time of the questions and the DPRs as we have evaluated them, they could change that. They could add things, and then we would still have to be responsible to submit that prior to the 27th. So what you're saying, Jerry, is really of a big concern that we really have had almost no say in the process, because there's a tremendous amount of redundancy here.
Any other questions on the QSAC summary? Okay, this is an agenda topic for later on for us to vote on also. With that, we can move into committee reports. We have, I believe, 7 committees that met and who are reporting. If you're not on the asterisk and you have something to say, we'll put you on at the end, okay? With that, we can start with finance and operations, Ron.
Okay, we had our meeting today, so everything is fresh. Just a couple of quick things. Believe it or not, we're Tim reminded us, we're in the budget cycle, or commencing the budget cycle for next year, 2009 and 2010. Or to believe we're at 10% into the 21st century, right? Related to the next year's budget is obviously this year's budget, and given the many financial constraints, the litigation, and some other areas, finishing up some of the construction, we're really going to continue to scrub the budget to see where there are opportunities to set money aside. So that is a continuing process, and Tim will report back to us really at every meeting. So I think we're hoping in January to have some well, not preliminary. We need to have numbers regarding next year's budget in January. So there's Tim shared with us, and you might want to send to every other member the budget timetable. Maybe you can email it to everyone else, so everyone else can see that. I guess working backwards on that. Where the heck was it? Last day, March 26th. Last day for county superintendent to approve the 09-10 budget. So working back from that point to where we are now. Food service results. Continues to be one of the great bewilderments in this budget, at least to me. September, historically, we're told, is a poor month. It was a poor month. Just to give you an idea, the revenues were almost $80,000 in October, and they were less than $50,000 in September. Two areas of concern that we discussed. One is the labor budget. Pete Fallon pointed out that at the pace we're on, the labor budget might not be accurate in terms of an overspend in that area. And maybe you can also email that to everyone else on the board.
I think they have that.
Do they have that in the package? Okay.
Well, you have September and October, I believe.
Yeah, well, that's what we have anyway.
Yes.
One of the other concerns that I just looked at now, Tim, is that unless there's a typo, on the expense area, it says insurance and benefits. Now, unless we prepay, that's the only thing I could say. It's about $19,600, and in September and October, we've spent almost $15,000. Now, I don't know if there's a prepayment there.
I can take a look at that.
Yeah, because that obviously would be a concern. I mean, in those 2 months, we've spent, 75 or 80% of that amount. So I don't know, if there's some prepayment going on with the insurance. Need to increase revenues, and of course, one of the areas that will need to be addressed, certainly by the end of the year, is the issue of the renewal of the district labor situation. That really aggravates the loss that again is going to be projected. We're hoping that September was an aberration. If you look at the if you take a minute to look at the district payroll, that probably it's budgeted $40,000. That probably in and of itself conservatively will be the difference between profitability and loss in the cafeteria. So we need to take a look at that more thoroughly. Two areas that we spent some time looking at is building and grounds from a financial point of view, not per se operational, and also busing. In the next month or so, we want to start with the busing to really get a total handle on what the baseline measurement would be. Simply put, if we spend and we're really talking about the in-house busing. The cost of that in-house busing is $1 million, and I'm not saying it is. It's approximately $1 million, I think, right, Tim?
Yeah.
We need to get that into a metric, either on a per hour cost, what it costs to run a bus, or per mile. And once we have those figures, we'll be able to make a determination whether or not there might be, with the third-party busing operations, might be a cost-saving or efficiency opportunity to reduce the busing that is performed in-house to a third party. Of course, the big unknown in terms of running routes is whether there will be increased efficiencies for third-party parties such as Dealman Bus Company. But the first opportunity that we need to take a look at is to really, how much does it cost for us to run a bus per hour? So you take all your fixed costs, all your variable costs, $1 million, determine how many hours during the course of the year we're running. And then at the end of the day, it costs us $100 an hour, $125 an hour, $75 an hour, whatever it is. And from there, we can make an intelligent determination what's from a cost benefit, what's the best thing to do. One of the concerns that a number of us had is the overtime. I don't think we have a handle on whether the overtime runs, by the way, about 25% of the total salary in this district. I can't, from just looking at that number, say whether the 25% is a good cost or it's not a good cost. It really ties into the underlying productivity of the people in the Building and Grounds Department, meaning how efficiently are they performing their jobs. If they're performing their jobs very efficiently, then the 25% cost might be very reasonable. If they're not, it follows it might not be reasonable. So we need to get a handle on those costs. It's worth noting that there are 12 employees in that department, and of the amount that was spent on overtime, 3 employees are 2/3 of the overtime expense. I don't know how the overtime is allotted, why that's the case, whether no one else volunteers, whether these guys volunteer, whether it's necessary or not. But we really need to make those determinations, because I don't know if does everyone have that information in the package?
No, that's just to the committee.
Okay, so I think that also should be sent to everyone. Just so everyone knows, the in 07-08, of $609,000 in salaries, $140,000 in overtime was paid. Again, I can't look at the numbers in and of themselves to see whether or not it's reasonable, but we need to make a determination of the underlying productivity to make that determination. And with respect to that issue, they're in terms of hiring a supervisor and also doing a financial analysis. Those are 2 things that we're going to be taking a look at very shortly. One other issue really is on the construction project. The district is owed approximately $2.4 million. We're in the process of finally completing the paperwork. We hope the last stages of that to submit it. Now, if you understand, we've spent that money. We've borrowed money to cover money that the state hasn't provided to us. The importance of it is so we don't have to roll over, pay interest on that money because we haven't received state money. So we're hoping, what do we think, in the next month or so? Is that a time frame, Tim?
To get the money?
No, to at least have the submission in from our point.
Well, we have submissions already in.
It's an ongoing basis. Yeah. And then the other issue will be, once we get that $2 million, the final retention that we're owed by the state, and I think your committee is on top of this, Lou. It's $400,000. It's sort of a little bit of a catch-22. We need a CO to get the last $400,000. So, hopefully, I know you guys, I think you have a list. The architect, Fiore, is putting together some list, the famous list that we can, check off, and hopefully so we can get our $400,000 there as well. But just circling back to this year's budget, it is absolutely critical that there are going to have to be some cutbacks, even in areas where we budgeted money to make a determination for Tim and Fran, if in fact it's critical, to spend this money, rather than just to see if we can set it aside for legal construction obligations. Very, very important. So That's really, in a nutshell, all of the major items. Peter, Jerry, anything I missed? Do you want to?
Well, I think to the point that you're making about the budget, there are a couple of items in particular that are going to be challenging. We already spent a lot of money in maintenance and operation, just, in terms of the fact that we had a QSAC and other issues that need to be addressed. And just in terms of our legal expenses, and looking at those numbers, we look like we're going to be very challenged as far as the amount of money necessary for the ongoing legal expenses this year.
I think what Jerry's also referring to, we're going from a very quiet period in the litigation to a more active period in terms of depositions and court appearances, so on and so forth. So things are picking up, and when they pick up, means the expense end picks up as well.
Right, there's an item on the agenda tonight as a mediator expense, so the mediator's been pulled in.
Do we have a, Paul, do we have plans to bring back Gary either at a meeting or a special meeting?
I don't have any plans right now, but we can certainly do that if,
maybe even at one of the meetings. I think,
executive session.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful.
Separate
Peter, you think that'd be helpful?
I have something. They're waiting for some reports to come back. As soon as they get them, then they want to meet with us.
What?
Michael. They're waiting for a couple reports to come back, and then they want to meet with us because they're going to be doing walkthroughs and the mediator. So he wants to have everything together before he sits down.
So is that, do you think, a month away?
Soon.
Mid-December.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe pretty quickly in January we can have that special, not special session, but make some time in an executive session. Well, thank you. That was, unless you guys have more?
No.
With that, we can move on to personnel.
Can I ask
I'm sorry, Laura.
some
Go ahead.
questions? Going back to the cafeteria, do you know the percentage of students that are using the food service accounts? Do we have?
It's about 28%, I think.
Yeah, it was in the teens last year. I know it's above 20. Last time I talked to him, I think it was 22, 23% and rising. I have seen an increase in deposits in the online product.
Can we get a message on the Honeywell alert system that goes out daily to the parents?
Yeah, we should.
Do we have to that point?
We should be able to do that easily.
To that point, Fran, do we have with the auditorium during like the holiday season? Do we have some plays going on where people, the community, the high school community parents will be coming?
Yeah, we have the choral and the orchestra concerts.
So maybe I think to that point, Laura, we need to set up a booth where parents can come right in that lobby, have a sign up for the cards. I mean, we can't miss marketing opportunities to help to increase the usage.
Yeah, I think we did have a Honeywell message, already about the card.
Yeah,
because I know Brian set one up, but we could do. I mean, we could pretty much do. I mean, I think we do daily reports with the news days. Unless we could put something as part of the news days.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm talking about. To put
maybe
in the
just
body
a
of news
standard
days,
statement
and
on the
also
news
explaining
days.
how
Would be a good idea.
the ways to get the money into the school.
But the thing about when parents are here, it cuts out steps 1, 2, and 3.
Tonight is freshman parent night.
Well,
yeah.
so that's what I'm saying. The next
Grab
big
them on the way out.
opportunity
We'll all stand there and greet them on the way out.
Well, we'll do that, I think.
Okay. With that, we can
And
move
then
on.
I also
You
had
have
one more thing. Regarding next year's budget, I know that, it's going to be a very tough thing to put together, but there is one thing that, I would like to see get noticed into the budget, which is the sound system for the auditorium for the theater.
That's in the budget this year.
Is that?
It's in the budget this year.
They're getting it together, the
Yeah,
proposals.
that's this year's budget.
No,
So
the money's there for this year.
So the money is
That's
all
correct.
there?
It's in part of the lease purchase,
Right.
and we have hired the consultant already who's been in performing the work already. And they have to get they have to get a bid package together for the products that we need. So we're going to put that on the street.
So do you know roughly a time frame as to when that would be happening?
We could find out.
I'll give you a better answer, but I know they're underway.
The money has been set aside because
Yes, it has.
we have that money.
Yeah.
ideally in time for the spring play.
That's exactly what our theater group wants, to have it completed prior to the spring play.
Okay, now, with that, we'll move on to personnel.
Okay, well, we actually met November 6th, so it's been, unlike tonight's meeting, it's been a little further away than that. We talked about the appointment, item C1, Director of Personnel on the agenda for this evening. And we discussed that at kind of length, and the committee wound up supporting the placement of that on the agenda. We also talked about the Director of Operations position. Paul, Steve, Nick, and Don are doing the first set of interviews, and then there's also another set of interviews. There's two teams doing interviews, and there were several screenings done, and 3 candidates, I think, are now going to be going through the final interviews this coming Wednesday. That's for the Director of Operations position. We talked about, let's see, secretarial positions. And Fran, you may have to work with me on some of these things too, just to refresh my memory on some of them. But we talked about secretarial positions, some of the special non-affiliated type positions.
Right, we
You need-
advertised two.
What's that?
We advertised one.
Advertised one, and you interviewed 3 people, and that was going back already, I think, to the 4th of November.
Yeah, no, I think with the secretaries, we were having the preliminary screenings and the first round of interviews, and then candidates, I think, are coming to me this week for
Okay,
final.
so that's where you are with that one.
And same for maintenance. I think that was a similar.
Maintenance grounds worker was another one. You had 3 interviews, and that was the ones, I'm sorry, that's the people that were doing the interviews for that. That was Paul, Steve, Nick, Don,
That's right.
Paul, Russ, and Steve doing the interviews for that position.
Right. They'll be on for next agenda. They're not on this one.
Okay. We talked about special consideration for one of the secretaries for some of the work, but the committee is of the feeling that for the non-confidential secretarial staff, we really need to have something more structured. So we're waiting for administration to bring that back to the committee before we can consider anybody for additional stipend or consideration. We're also going over the organizational chart, a new version of it or an updated version of that, and that's not ready yet, so that will be presented when it is ready, as well as any current job descriptions, and make sure that they're up to date. That's pretty much it, unless you want to add something. Anybody want to add something that was a month ago? We're also meeting, I think, there's a proposed meeting for Thursday morning. So let me know if anybody wants to attend, or this would follow the B&G meeting.
Is that right?
8:30?
I'll be
8:30.
Good. That's all I can recall. I think you did a good job.
Even though it was a month ago.
It was a month ago. Lots happened since.
Okay. Negotiations, Pete, do you have anything you want to report?
Negotiations, we're expecting to hear back shortly from the principals and supervisors that we have we're very close to a signed agreement. Bernie is working on salary guides with them now for the next contract period. It does look like we are going to succeed in getting agreements, a 1-year and a 3-year agreement that'll cover 4 years. The rest of it, I'll wait until we have the signed agreement before I discuss it in public.
Okay. Questions? Okay. With that, we go into buildings and grounds.
Still standing. We haven't had a meeting in a while due to many reasons, being away, and holidays and stuff, but since the last report, we had the health inspector, and Tim's been all over that, and they've resolved a lot of the issues she had when she made her initial inspection, and she gave us a conditional approval. I guess there's some
We
minor-
actually did receive it.
You got it?
Yeah, we got it.
Actually did get it.
So that Tim's been all over it. He took care of it.
Is that with the cafeteria?
Yeah.
Too bad. Too bad. Maybe they could have closed this down.
Yeah. You know. And Fran touched on the CUSAC issue with the DCA and the state. It's an issue with the fire alarm system. They have to accept it from the municipality. And that's what it states. And we don't have a municipality, we have the state who's doing our inspections. So they can't figure that out down there, and that's why we're getting gigged the points that we are. So DCA and them are talking until they come up with a common ground. It's going to stay that way. The chillers, Tim found out that we have a maintenance agreement with Johnson Controls up through 2010. So that'll take MSC out of the picture.
That's right.
Until then, because we were going to get them to do the maintenance, but we don't have to now because we got the warranty on that.
Did we have a budget line for that maintenance?
Not a specific line. We have a large budget line that has other maintenance contracts as well.
But what I'm trying to say is, did we have some money put in the budget for this, and now we don't need it?
Yeah, but it's not as much as you might want to think.
It's not done.
Well, the maintenance agreement covers not just the chillers, but it covers the 9 rooftop units as well, which to them was the bulk of the contract. So
of course.
Then there's in the south building a lot of the univents that are the heating and air conditioning controls in the classrooms. Upon installation, they had no end caps, so all the piping and equipment was in the open. They jerry-rigged a temporary fix with some sheetrock and metal studs. It wasn't acceptable. We've been on that for the longest time, and Buildings and Grounds has started to button them up now. So it's just another item on the list. I won't go into the long-range facilities issues. We talked about Michael just waiting for some reports to come back to get to us for a discussion on the litigation. The pit lift. When the pit lift was deactivated, the electricity was also removed. That's the only way DCA would accept it. So the controller is here. I don't know if did they happen to get it installed yet?
I don't think so.
It's
no,
not been,
we're having trouble getting the opportunity to get into the auditorium. It's being used quite a bit.
okay.
So that's the thing we need to free up.
So the controller's here. Once it's installed and operational, then Tim can start getting the DCA in here and start doing final inspections. And from what you said, they're even receptive to Don's lower level egress.
He feels pretty positive about it.
Don presented a plan for egress at the lowest level to DCA, and when we last talked, he thought it would go through, and his latest email says it looks very good. So we may eventually have it at the lowest level also. We're still going through the process out for the sewer line out back. As soon as you get involved with the EPA and wetlands, it's a slow process. So we're still working. We have some minor sprinkler issues that we have to document. It's mostly documentation for a south building. So once we get that, then the DCA can check that off their inspection list. And then there's just the TV studio. We got pricing out for bids out to get pricing back to finish that hallway. And then the offices and the Board of Ed offices and classroom renovations are part of the long-range facilities plan. I think that's it. Now, we have a meeting Thursday morning. And, go over a lot of this and hopefully we get some more answers. That's it.
Okay, questions? All right, we can move on then. Co-curricular?
I'm not prepared to report at this time, but if anybody has any comments that of the people who were at the meeting, feel free to make them. One thing I did want to mention, though, is that in response to your request for information and research material on concussions, we are, not we, but the administration and the athletic department are pursuing that information.
Thank you.
You want to go back to curriculum?
You weren't
I think
asked
you
for-
jumped. I think, did you not just jump over
You're
curriculum?
not on the asterisk.
You weren't asked for this. I start through the asterisk.
Mine has an asterisk. Oh, I have last month's that I'm working on.
Okay.
That's what, because
sorry,
we
Pete,
did have
anything
a
else?
meeting.
Pete, anything else? Anything else at this time?
Next meeting.
Next meeting, okay. All right. Do you
All
have
right.
this curriculum?
We did have a meeting on November 12th, and you heard two of the reports tonight of the new courses that are being offered. However, what I found very interesting is there are more courses in the pipeline that I think we like to know about, and they're just at the first level, which is the Teachers Curriculum Committee. After that, they'll go to the cabinet. Right now, three that look good as far as the teachers are discussing was Algebra 3, and then a personal finance course, and a cinema studies, art of film. And we'll see whether they come up to the top after the teachers decide that they're worthwhile and would be, I think, wonderful additions to our program of studies. We did have our director of guidance come and brought us material. She's revising our program of studies. She feels that the format had too much detail in it, and it's a work in progress. She hasn't completed yet, but we will see a new program of studies. I knew you'd be interested in that one. There was also a discussion of midterms. See, no, I guess Tom is gone. And it's at the teachers and supervisors level right now. And a lot of them are in favor of doing away with midterms, and they're still getting feedback. I find these things very interesting. That's the fun part of being on the board. And they now talk about their mining knowledge rather than memorizing knowledge. Now they just get into the information. So they're working toward a knowledge economy, and we'll see how this will impact on college if they do away with the midterms. Not done yet, but in discussion level. Then we were also talking about notice of failure. Some of our students still do fail, and their progress reports and then their registered letters do go out to the parents if there is such a problem. And then we're talking about the HESPA, how that will affect the students in the building who are not involved in that testing. And we're just concerned, or our administrators were concerned, if we could continue a normal schedule with our other grade levels with enough proctors and enough space. So our curriculum meeting was a very fruitful, interesting one, and if anyone's interested in some of the college material, the application material, I do have some copies given to me by the guidance. There's a lot of material here. I didn't want to waste it, so I wrote it for whoever is interested in it. Okay, thank you.
Laura?
Sandy, I don't know if it got discussed or not, but with the midterms, would that make the final the entire year's worth of?
Well, that's what we were discussing with the supervisors, is how we would reapportion the various points during the school year for the marking period and then for the final. But to end the story, to bring the story to close in case students are waiting with bated breath to hear about whether there'll be midterms, we decided to go forward with them for this year and then perhaps look at it, revisit it again in the coming school year. Sorry.
But it's an interesting concept, isn't it?
Questions?
Now, I just want to add also to what Sandy said is I've been going to the teacher curriculum committee meetings, and it's been very exciting and very energizing to see all these wonderful courses get introduced, and they've all been positively received at that committee level.
It is wonderful because I sat on it when the school population was nosedived, and we were having to cause that. So you're at a much better point than enjoying those meetings.
By the way, for those that have access to the New York Times hard copy, or you can go nytimes, nyt.com. So there's an interesting article, I guess the library has it maybe during a break, a front page article in the New York Times, how
Today's paper?
yeah, growing number of foreign colleges such as Edinburgh University, St. Andrews, University of Dublin, growing and larger numbers of American students are attending colleges full-time, not just a semester abroad at these colleges for a variety of reasons, including economics, that it's significantly cheaper to go to Edinburgh University in Scotland than paying $40,000, $50,000 a year for a private school in the United States. I mean, interesting article. Just take a glimpse.
New York Times today.
Front page.
Let's see. Okay. All right. Any other questions? The policy committee met, I think it was November the 4th, if I'm not mistaken, and went through the regulations. You have 6 regulations, actually 6 that are first reading, 1 that's second reading regulations, and then the 5 policies that are then for the first reading. The regulations are basically driven by QSAC, and we need to have them put in place for QSAC. And the same thing is true of the policies that we went through. We spent time talking about at length about the personnel records policy. We've been through that a number of times, specifically and sent it back to legal for legal comment and review, especially on the part that, if you look at the policy, was highlighted in yellow about the need to maintain confidentiality of information as for applicants that are applying into the school district, not just for the employees. We also, you can see the other 5 policies, and they were not quite discussed quite as much. We spent a lot of time talking about the public records policy again. This is the first time it's come to you. We've been through it a couple times. One is to make sure this is essentially a policy that's driven by the need to make sure that we meet OPA requests and have a policy in place to help meet those requests. We also wanted to make sure that this would meet our requirements in the district for some of the processes that go around providing records to the public, such as how much the public has to pay, how much we're willing to allow the public to have access to those records, not by physical access, not by them coming in and actually seeing the records, but by them taking the records to physically remove them, perhaps either from some other place in the building or perhaps to another place for the purposes of copying, which we wanted to restrict. We'll make the copies, but we don't want them to take the records off-site or somehow remove them from our jurisdiction or custodialship. We also want to make sure in this policy that some of the issues around electronic records are managed also, and so there's language in here that we think meets that need. You can take a look at that and see if you think it meets the need. We've spent time also talking about 2 policies that spring from a concept of wanting to encourage open communications within the staff and within the community, to make sure that the community and the staff, as well as our employees, all understand that the board promotes and wants to have an atmosphere of open communication and do whatever we can to make sure that that happens. And so Pete has provided us with some suggestions in 2 areas, one of which has to do with some of the concepts around whistleblower policy, which is actually the law in the state of New Jersey, which we are obligated to follow. Another one which has to do with some concepts around freedom of speech, which we're trying to incorporate into a policy that will go towards this encouraging open communications, as well as managing the chain of command. So we get kind of the chain of command, but we also get people that come forward and are willing to talk to board members and have staff being willing to talk to board members. So those were the things that we're focusing on right now. I'm sorry, I forgot one. The facilities use policy, we've made the changes to that policy as discussed at the last meeting. I was going to have a discussion tonight about the cost associated with field use. I don't think we don't have that table with us. I think that we had talked about the list of proposals for the field use. So we'll do that at the next meeting, and we'll talk there and then about the cost of the fields.
I think we have a policy meeting upcoming. Am I correct?
I think Thursday.
Yeah. Thursday. Thursday this week?
I think so.
That's what I thought.
Okay. All right.
Just
go ahead. I just want to open it up to committee members.
Point of clarification on policy 8320, personnel records. There is not a unanimous, there's not unanimity in the presentation of this policy as written. It's being presented with a dissenting vote so that we could get a first reading, and any clarification or changes may still yet to be discussed. So I just want to make that clear.
Did we had asked for Dr. Cirillo to provide us with information on this. Do you know if we've gotten feedback from him at this time?
I don't recall, but he'll be here this evening. We can ask him.
I mean, the feedback, the question
Was for the CSA and the VA, if it applied to them.
how much this applies and how we're going to handle those situations also.
But another question was the accessibility of the applications for employment by board members. And I think, as I heard at the last meeting, there's a discrepancy or a difference of opinion on the interpretation of who is able to look at the applications, even though people may not be recommended for a position. And there was a difference of point of view here. And we were supposed to get a legal answer on that specific question. An example, you apply for the job, Peter applies for a job, I as a board member have the right to review all of your application without any, what's the word here used here? Redacting, meaning that some of that application can be blocked out by the superintendent or his or her designee. And that's a question.
That was discussed with legal counsel. We discussed it at the policy committee.
We discussed it, but there's a difference of opinion. School boards has one, and the
we were going to go back
information.
to school boards to get their view of that.
Pardon me?
We were going to go back to school boards to get their view of
Well,
that.
I got this, but I'm asking, so when we discuss it at the next meeting, I'd like to know if the position has changed, and if this particular sentence or two sentences belong in this personnel records policy. They may belong in another policy, not existing personnel.
Peter, just so that I'm clear, I thought that my charge for bringing to school boards was with regard to the freedom of speech policy.
That's a different policy.
Right. Specifically for this policy, we did have review by legal counsel, and the opinion was that the school board, you as a governing body, could set forward a system of operationalizing review of applicants for positions that would give the board member sufficient information to be able to make an informed decision, yet protect the confidentiality of the applicant in the process of review prior to being brought forward for action where the actual resume would be provided.
Before
We're going to have this debate tonight, or we want to do it Thursday?
We'll do it another time.
Okay.
But we did say that we would go back to school boards to find out from them, to get a clarification from them on their opinion on this kind of language within the policy. We said we would
Okay,
do that.
because my understanding was just the freedom of speech.
We'll have to go back and do that. So that's kind of where we are on those policies at this point in time. So to Peter's point, the personnel records is coming forward. It's the first read. It gets us on the books. Everybody can comment on it then, and then we can take your feedback and we'll make whatever modifications may be necessary at that time, okay? So with that, we can move on to community and business. Are there any questions on policy? I'm sorry. With that, we can move on to community and business relations.
Okay, we met on November 18th, and Sandy was there, and Dr. Stromsland, Kim, Brian Bayachek, and Judith Mulder were there. And first up, we discussed fundraising and ways we could make it make our fundraising operations more uniform and more user-friendly for particularly parents. We discussed. I think students pretty much have things under control because you guys are here every single day and are aware of protocol and procedure. I would imagine, unless you have anything to add. But in terms of like clubs or teams where you have parents, involved in fundraising, the protocol is not always so clear. And we wanted to try to make it as easy as possible, for fundraising to take place. So there's a new technology foundation starting up. There's a new arts foundation starting up. So it's a good time to set up, very user-friendly ways, for fundraising, so that people know how to, get the right forms to take the appropriate steps and the right, the right protocol to take. I think Dr. DeGancy was also at the meeting and mentioned that all the advisors are aware of what the protocol is. And then the financial piece comes from Tim in terms of, doing things on a tax-free basis. We also discussed the TV there's the TV station in the school. Right now, the school is wired. There's a cable that is actually coming into the school, but ends at a certain point, does not go into the TV studio. So what we would like to do, Verizon had 2 TV channels to give to actually Warren, and the high school is entitled to one of those TV channels. So we wanted to be able to have that TV channel. If we don't use it, it potentially will go away. So we have to take the steps to see how much it will cost and the logistics of running the line into the TV studio, and also dealing with Verizon and the steps that need to be done paperwork-wise there. I also I found out today that there is a program available for people with anybody who, I guess, has a TV at home and a computer. If, let's say, we as the holder of the TV station paid, it's a minimal fee, I think it was $250. The viewer at home can go onto their computer, log on to a website, and decide what they're going to view. So if they're going to say, I want to view the December 1st board meeting, they can key that in and view that at the time that they designate. Or let's say there's a game, a football game that, that would be, in our system. They could designate and say, I want to watch that 7 o'clock on Thursday. So that's a new development, something that we can look into. We also discussed the district goals from the December 3rd board meeting and went over that. Which I don't put that together.
December 3rd.
And I think that was the
Which board
majority.
meeting was that again?
Which means November 3rd.
You mean November 3rd?
November 3rd meeting,
November
yeah.
3rd.
Any questions?
Questions? No.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay. Therein ends the committee reports, unless somebody else has something to add at this time. There is no principal. Is there a principal's report? Do you have a principal's report? All right. So with that, we can go on to the first opportunity for public comment.
Hi, Sophia.
Thank you for attending. Seeing none, we'll move on. And seeing no public, we'll move on. We'll move on to board discussion. I was going to have a discussion on facilities use. We'll have that at the next meeting, so that's going to be postponed to the next meeting. We do have a need to have a discussion about the board professional development improvement plan. This is a CUSAC requirement that the board have a professional development improvement plan. These were the opportunities that came out of a workshop that we had in July that was then summarized by Gwen Thornton, sent to us sometime in October timeframe, brought to the board then for discussion 2-3 weeks at the last meeting on November the 3rd. We were going to approve it on November the 14th. At that time, after any other discussion, we didn't meet then, but we're now meeting tonight. So this is our opportunity to discuss it, and we will approve it. We will need to have these approved tonight. So I'll open up the floor. There are, I'll just briefly describe it. There are 3 areas of activities that are indicated for professional development. Again, these came out of our self-assessment that was held last year that rolled into a meeting that we had later on that Gwen Thornton helped summarize. So the first one on that has activity had to do with develop an annual calendar to ensure that all statutory dates are met. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe in your packet tonight, in the blue section, you'll see that there is a calendar. This is at least the second revision, maybe the third revision of this calendar. It's basically kind of a roadmap for the year that gives you an idea of things that are going on and where we're headed during the year for future meetings. So, for instance, there's a December 1st, 7 p.m. It's on here is already some items of things that we knew we were going to have to cover. And if you look out in the future, you'll see dates rolling out there in terms of things that we know we're going to have to be covering, hopefully in about that time frame. Item 2 on this had to do with workshop to be held that was to review the process and requirements and board responsibilities around superintendent evaluation with the New Jersey School Board Association. This had to do with the evaluative process of the superintendent, and to have a workshop for the board here as a whole to go through to understand that process and the requirements and our responsibilities. And then the third part of this, the third area for performance we had to do with was going to be addressed to a workshop that would be held. But again, would review board members' roles and responsibilities, and would especially pay attention and focus on chain of command and improving the relationship between the board and the superintendent. Okay, so the superintendent, BA, and administrators.
I think it's more complete.
Are there any other questions on or comments on these? Pete?
Just a question. Do we vote on these three separately, or are we voting on one plan?
I would like to vote on just one plan.
Are you changing that last one to be BA administrator?
Yeah, we're going to change number 3 to say the superintendent. We'll actually change it to say the CSA, BA, and administrators. Okay.
It's less about the policy, or less about the plan, but is it possible for us to get this electronically, and then when it gets updated, get the updates electronically?
I think it's on your board member page already.
Good, thank you.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions on these? Comments?
Okay, since you invited. I would vote to approve number 1 and not 2 and 3, but I'm not asking for a vote separately. I think number 1 fulfills the obligation to have an improvement plan.
Okay. Any other comments?
That's A16.
I thought training was also a requirement, board training was also part of that.
This is what...
That's why I think, to Peter's point, I think...
I see what you're saying.
I thought there was a requirement.
Should the training be part of a development plan? We're obligated to have training under the law.
Right.
I don't understand that to be part of our professional development plan.
I thought that was part of it, too.
You may be right, Jerry.
If there are no comments on, or no other questions on this at this time, you'll have another chance for questions when we have the resolution. It's resolution A16 for the night, okay? I think I got that. Yep. Okay. With that, we can move on to action items.
Just on board discussion, I don't know whether you want to do it in new business or old business, but one of the things I thought we said in finance is we need to do something with the long-range facility plan in terms of getting that classroom space moved on there. Did you want to do it this meeting?
Actually, Jerry, on the agenda, we have items, I think it's D8, D9, and D10.
Yes.
Which all relate to the long-range facility plan.
Modifications to the long-range plan.
D8 specifically is the classroom project, where the plan itself has identified unhoused students that we need to correct. And that was a plan that was done some time ago by actually a different architect, That's the two-phase project.
Okay, one of the things that at the next meeting, we will bring back, we need to take a look at the, while we have board goals, we need to look at this and approve the CSA goals. So we will be looking at that then for the next meeting. And most likely then, what we'll try to do is send them out in advance of that, and we'll have a vote on it, discussion and vote on it at the next meeting, okay?
May I just add one more thing for discussion? In your folders, you have an email from an individual involved in the AFS, the Intercultural Exchange Program, who is, I guess, a little concerned about our policy. I just saw this email today, so I have not had a chance to respond to her, but I will affirm what the policy is and try to answer any questions she has.
I meant to bring this up also. We'll bring this in and talk about as needed in the policy committee meeting. Okay. With that, we can move on to action items. We have items under the area of administration A1 through A16. Does anybody have any of those that they want to pull for separate voting?
Could I pull A1 and A16?
Okay. Any others that people want to have pulled for separate voting? Can I get a resolution on A2 through A15 then?
So moved.
Any
Second.
discussion? We have moved and seconded. Any discussion on A2 through A15?
On A6, that you said these are just first readings, and we're
Right.
getting more information from council regarding
Personnel records.
8320, okay.
Yeah.
And so once we get that, we can have a discussion, hopefully before it's on for second reading?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay, thank you.
At A12, that is the current LLD rate? I think a little bit higher than that. I thought we were over 40,000.
Yeah, that is. I don't know what she's. Oh, I know.
Oh, no,
She's
no,
doing a
this
daily
is-
rate.
This is a daily
So-
rate of 249.80, and that's placement at the Somerset Hills School District.
No, it's into our program, but
Our
it's
program.
it's not for the full year, Jerry.
That's not an annual,
what she
that's
prorated
November
it.
17th to...
The
Okay.
pupils, she prorated it from November 17th on. That yeah, she calculated it correctly.
Sorry, I had it backwards.
But actually, the year should change. I didn't see that before, but now I look at it, I see it says 2008/2008. It should be 2008/2009.
Peter, let me go back to your question on A6, 8320. Do you have comments, significant comments on the policy as it's written now? And should we just bring it back for first reading the next time around? Is that what
I do want to have it on for,
a first reading again?
yes, after we get...
We'll take that back to first reading.
Are we pulling that?
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're just gonna pull it. Okay. Any other questions on A2 through A15? I'll remind you, we've pulled 8320 out of A6 for first reading. Okay. Any other questions on A2 through, without, not hearing any, can I get a roll call vote on A2 through A15?
Mr. Binder?
Yes.
Mr. Fallon?
Yes.
Mr. Falzarano?
Yes.
Mrs. Fechner?
Yes.
Mr. Horowitz?
Yes.
Ms. Mandel?
Yes.
Mr. Pepe?
Yes.
Mr. Sun?
Yes.
And Dr. Seelig?
Yes.
Motion's carried.
Can I get a motion on A1?
So moved.
Second? I need a second for A1.
Second. Thank you,
It's
Peter.
been moved to
I was
second.
talking.
Pete, you had questions on this, or you wanted to, you
No, I just want to vote separate.
just want to vote separately? Okay. Can I get a roll call vote on A1 then?
Mr. Binder?
Yes.
Mr. Fallon?
No.
Mr. Falzarano?
Yes.
Mrs. Fechner?
Yes.
Mr. Horowitz?
Yes.
Ms. Mandel?
Yes.
Mr. Pepe?
Yep.
Mr. Sun?
Yes?
Dr. Seelig.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, can I get a motion on A16?
Move A16.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Laura, you had,
Where would we do discussion before?
after it's been moved and seconded.
Okay,
It's been moved and seconded.
okay.
A16,
Yeah.
you want to discuss?
I just had a very brief, specific question.
Uh-huh.
Get that, take it.
On page 11 on the plan, there's curriculum issues, and there's something called Digital Portfolio Turnitin.com. Do you know anything about that, or what?
Okay, that's not A16.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought it was the
This is for the professional
Professional
development
development plan.
board.
It's a blue,
It's at
in
one
blue.
sheet.
Am I,
It was in your folder, though.
okay.
Two seconds.
Oh, in the folder, the blue
We'll
folder?
come back, Lord, let me come back to your question.
Okay.
I think are you referring to Turnitin.com?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, that's software that we have installed so that we can check for plagiarism.
Oh, okay.
This is what
Well, we're not worried about the board plagiarizing. Sure. That has to do with.
We do it all the time, right?
That's,
Is it one of the adult school courses? What is it?
no, I think it was actually part of the, I don't recall. Laura, what's the title of the page that you have, the document you have?
It was the professional development plan.
Oh,
for
that's
state.
I'm sorry,
The
that
detail.
particular one is the local professional development plan that's developed by the teachers.
Right.
In their committee, and Turnitin is software to identify plagiarism.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we've got A16 has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on A16 at this time? With that, can I get a roll call vote?
Mr. Binder?
Yes.
Mr. Fallon?
No.
Mr. Falzarano?
Yes.
Mrs. Fechner?
Yes.
Mr. Horowitz?
Yes.
Ms. Mandel?
Yes.
Ms. Pepe?
Yep.
Mr. Sun?
Yes.
Dr. Seelig?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay. With that, we can move on to the B.
Could I move B1 then?
Of course you can. Can I get a second on B1? It's been moved and seconded. Discussion on B1. I'll just say I think it's really exciting to have a CAD Architecture 2 course being offered. I know I have assigned to CAD Architecture 1. It made a big impact on him personally and his desire to move into what he's now involved in, which is architecture at the college level. So it's a significant course.
Either of these new courses prep the student for college, or they get college credit for that, or is it just a?
No, they're not offered for college credit, but they do provide a good deal of insight, as Paul
Right.
said, for a student who's thinking about that as a career.
The CAD Architect, that's not part of the Project Lead the Way series.
No.
Yeah. Okay. It certainly had a big impact.
Okay.
I'm really excited to see a TV studio broadcast, because I think then we can use that to, Laura, your point, to help fill the stations and provide, because I noticed when we were down at the 100 Central game a couple of weeks ago, they were talking about the students with videotaping it. It was going to be broadcast by students through the town, the game that, I guess the coming week, over the coming weeks. It'd be great to see our students get involved in that. Can I get any other discussion on B1? Can I get a roll call vote on B1?
Mr. Binder?
Yes.
Mr. Fallon?
Yes.
Mr. Falzarano?
Yep.
Mrs. Fechner?
Yes.
Mr. Horowitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Mandel?
Yes.
Mr. Pepe?
Yeah.
Mr. Sun?
Yes.
Dr. Seelig?
Yes.
Motion carried.
We have personnel items C1 through C15. Does anybody have any of those that they wish to have pulled for separate voting?
Just a question on one. But I'll raise it after we move.
Then I'll move
Can I get a moved motion?
C1 through C15.
Can we pull C1?
Oh, I'm sorry, then
You
I'll
wanna pull
move
C-
C2 through C15.
We can pull C1. Okay, so we have a motion, and it's been moved and seconded for C2 through C15. Any discussion on C2 through C15? Pete, was that what your question was?
Yes?
On one, or?
Which one?
One.
Okay, we're not there yet.
Just on C10.
We just second, Pete, we pulled C1.
Pulled one, yes.
We pulled C1 for separate voting, so we're only discussing C2 through C15 at this time.
C10?
C10, I just wanted to know what the tenure date would then be.
Sorry, Jerry?
The tenure date would be
For
C10.
C10.
That's,
The tenure date?
well, it's the long-term sub who's becoming got the certification.
Yeah, her certification would be September 1. Her tenure date would go with her certification is retroactive to September 1.
Okay.
We just don't appoint until they actually have it in hand.
I always felt maybe we should include that as part of the resolution, this
Yeah,
way
that's
if
not
you
a
ever
bad
have to
idea.
go back and look in a couple years and just so you know what the actual
Can you-
tenure date would be.
What language are you suggesting be put in there?
Just add something with the tenure date
Yep, that's not a bad idea.
of September 1st, 2000, what would it be, 11?
Can you become pretty specific? I just want to make sure it gets in there,
Yeah,
okay?
you have to be more specific, really as to a higher date, because state law controls when
That's
tenure
exactly-
is.
I would
that's
agree.
probably a
So
better-
you really
Yeah.
want to
That's
specify
probably-
a higher date.
Well, then could I ask them to put the date in?
Yes.
Yes.
So,
Just, we could approve it.
so
but
instead of saying retroactive to September 2008, you want to say retroactive back to
September
September
1.
1st?
Yeah.
whatever the
That's
date
the
would be
contract
appropriate
date.
for tenure, so we know when we're doing the tenure list, if it,
I understand. I just want to make sure it gets in there correctly.
yeah, I do too. This way, you can always go back and check the minutes.
So we're going to make that retroactive to September, and a specific date is going to be put in there.
September 1.
And so there's a person,
We can add that now.
well, we've already moved and seconded all of them. So if we can just agree that that's in, those who moved and seconded, that's
Yes,
acceptable,
yes.
then it's in. All right. So we'll make that, so just so everybody knows, C10 is now going to read, starting from the third line down, it's going to be retroactive to September 1, 2008, less the salary she received as substitute teacher to date. So it's a specific date, not just a range of
And then,
dates.
so then effective date of tenure would be September 1st also? Okay.
Well,
Well, it's 3 years and a day.
yeah, it all depends on, because things could happen in the 3 years that would extend it or change it, whatever.
Okay. Any other questions on C2 through C?
Kim, has somebody verified the amounts in C14 and 15 is correct for the contract and sidebars?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, those are fine.
thank you.
Any other questions? C2 through C15? Hearing none, can I have a roll call vote?
Mr. Binder?
Yes.
Mr. Fallon?
Yes.
Mr. Falzarano?
Yep.
Mrs. Fechner?
Yes.
Mr. Horowitz?
Uh-huh.
Mrs. Mandel?
Yes.
Mr. Pepe?
Yep.
Mr. Sun?
Yes.
Dr. Seelig?
Yes.
Motion's carried.
If I may then,
Is there a
I will
motion?
move C1.
Can I get a second? C1 has been moved and seconded, is open for discussion. Who wants to discuss it? Laura?
Yeah, I missed the personnel meeting, the last one where that got discussed, but I just wanted to kind of speak my mind on this one a little bit. I know this was discussed, and the majority of the board seemed to advocate for a heavy-hitting personnel, HR person, yeah, I was not of that school of thought, and I just feel like in light of recent events of what's happening economically, to have a full-time position of that salary range, it's just a big number to add to to our expenses, and I believe that perhaps that as an interim position that the problems can get resolved that way, and that's my opinion that I just wanted to state.
Okay. Any other discussion on C1 at this time?
Just a
C?
question, just so there's no confusion, and in terms of the next salary increment, or when does it take place? Because we've had this discussion many times, many positions. He or she was hired on a certain date. I was under the impression that the salary would be good for a year to the next contract upgrade,
C1.
not the first. Where are we on this one? Does this gentleman become eligible for the salary increase under what guide and when? And does it carry through for an entire year and then become eligible? Or does he become eligible at the end of the contract in June? Where are we?
Well, the individual is not on a salary guide and on a negotiated agreement. He is This position has always been a non-affiliated position. So this salary...
We haven't had it,
Yes, well, we have had a position of like a manager's level.
but we haven't had this position.
Yes, but this position is a non-affiliated position. We did not put it in the contractual agreement. In other words, it's not in the principal and supervisor's contract.
Right. So at some point, though, we have had this discussion. Non-affiliated, they still come up for
Yes, that's
pay
right.
raises.
That's
My
right.
question is, when does this gentleman come up for, quote, his initial pay
Well,
raise? Is it in June, or is it going to be a year after June?
Typically, when an individual is appointed before the first of the year,
Where is that in writing?
Excuse me?
Where is that in writing?
We're
We
just
have a
let her
policy?
finish- let her finish the
I'm
whole-
sorry, I'm
let her
sorry.
finish the whole thing, Peter.
What I'm saying is that our practice has been that when an individual is appointed prior to the first of the year, they would be on a prorated salary for the balance of that school year, whether it be anyone that's appointed prior to the first of the year. Then July 1st, they would be eligible for whatever increments were set up in that particular unit, whether it's non-affiliated or whether it's in any other of the agreements. So this individual is being appointed prior to January 1st. So he would receive a prorated salary for the balance of the school year based on the total annual salary, and then be considered for increment July 1st.
Okay, so that answers the question, but it raises another question. I go to Peter on this one. Weren't we going to convene a group or a study group and make all positions categorized or whatever? We weren't just going to leave it up in the air like we had this discussion in past negotiations on non-affiliated.
Yeah.
Where do the numbers come from? Aren't we going to set numbers for and ranges for all positions?
Well, I think that's not particularly a negotiations issue, but my recollection is that we did
We were
talk
going to.
as I think as the whole board when we discussed the unaffiliated raises, non-affiliated raises this past time when we did them, that we wanted to get just what you're saying, a sense of where the different positions within the non-affiliated
Ranges
should
and
be.
category and have
It
a
was discussed.
differentiation between.
It was discussed, Pete, and we were going to talk about, it was going to be discussed through the Personnel Committee, I thought, which was to establish that range, those
Right.
ranges.
Hasn't happened.
Year we were supposed to
No,
have.
not
so
yet,
we-
but that was in preparation for the coming school year. In this particular case, there was a full board discussion about, first, the need for a position at this level, because we have had some issues in the past.
I'm not arguing a position.
But, and again,
No, I-
at this particular salary level, that's
Right.
what was discussed and approved by the board.
Fine.
Yeah.
That's not.
Right.
Question
that
is,
was my-
the question is, when's
Yes.
the opportunity for a raise come up
Yeah.
for this fellow? And
July.
whether that's, and
are we
the
gonna
answer to that's
follow-
July
Are we going to
1st.
follow that? And I'd like to, again, I don't remember from past discussions if there was a definitive date put on if a person was hired before or after. If I
if you
remember
review-
correctly, we have stated in the past, this person would not receive a raise through until the following year. And I don't know if there was ever a date. And I go back to one of our business administrators who was hired. That person was going to receive a certain salary through the end of the contract and pick it up later. And we did vote to pick it up later.
Yes, that's correct, Peter. But if you go back and you look at board minutes of other folks that have been hired in similar
So
circumstances.
we've done it both ways.
I think in that particular circumstance, there was a decision made because of the scope of salary to have that salary go forward for a longer period
Yeah,
of time.
so we've done it both ways. That's my point.
No, we've really done it most of the time this way.
But we have
It's done
done
both ways.
it.
It's been done both
No,
ways.
that's not today.
So the question is, what's the point? Do you want to change? Do you want to make a
No, I
motion?
just want to know.
I think
That's
the
all.
better,
Okay.
I think the better question
You've got-
is, was there any discussion held about expectations along these lines with the individual? I mean, was there anything outlined? Was there anything, set forward or represented in terms of, what it is, entitlements or not? Maybe that's the way of asking the
Yeah,
question.
that's, that we've not had a conversation with the individual that he would expect, other than what would be the normal course of business, to be considered for an increment when everyone else is considered for
Maybe-
one.
maybe,
On July 1st.
Maybe to Peter's point, since there have been instances, whether it's one way, 10 the other way, it might, in this case of these non-affiliated persons, be wise for the board to perhaps think of adopting a policy, one of which could be if a person is hired subsequent to the commencement of the school year for the following year, and if they fall into the non-affiliated category, any increases will be based on their pro rata tenure, meaning if they were here 80% of the year, they would get 80% of the raise. That's one way of looking at it. Or you could just have a cutoff, and for example, saying, if they're hired subsequent to, or if their job commences, January 1st or afterwards, they will not be eligible for a pay increase to the following year. I mean, I think
that's what we've done.
you really what?
That's what we've done.
Well, I know, but whether you've done it or not, maybe we can see what options are, so that some people don't get treated one way and some people get treated the other way. And to Peter's point, the issue is not raised. What did we do with this person? What did we do with that person? That there's a consistent policy. So it doesn't. Regardless of when the person is hired, you say, well, I mean, if it's this way, it's a pro rata next year. If they were here half the year, they get half the raise. Or if you like the idea, if they're high, they get the full raise unless they're hired after January 1st. They get no raise till the commencement of the year afterwards.
Okay, Sandra?
Well, I think we have to go back to what the motion is, and what we're talking about really should be, I think, and I think these are all wonderful suggestions, but I think it has to be discussed in the committee and come back to the board, because it really doesn't relate to this particular motion. This motion is, we have this man here, are we going to vote for him, yes or nay? And then we can, Peter, put this into a discussion, bring it back.
I just wanted to raise the issue.
Well, no, it only pertains to it, Sandra, is if in fact this gentleman comes with an expectation that he would.
Yeah, but you're putting that in his head, though. We don't
Well, I
know
don't.
what's coming.
Well, I don't know. Maybe he asked the question.
Hold on. Any other questions, comments? Pete?
I was just going to say largely what Sandra said. We asked personnel to look at ranges for non-affiliates, and I think this folds nicely into it when you hire someone in mid-year. So let's kick it back to personnel, let them look at it and come back and make recommendations to us. Then we can have the discussion amongst ourselves on whether this then goes to policy if we decide that we want to adopt such a policy.
Okay.
I think, though, just to that point, and without beating this, I mean, a lot of that discussion involved the fact that if you've got a group of people together, especially, it really falls well within that realm. When you've got individuals that are singular, that may be more dicey as far as, looking at non-affiliates in context of other things. So, but I'm more than willing to try to take a look at it, but I just, my hope is more when we have a group of like non-affiliate secretaries that are, treated a certain way, that they should be consistently treated and then consistent with other types of secretaries. I think that kind of
and I
fits
think
the pattern better.
And I think if I was discussing it on the personnel committee, I'd agree. You'd look at groups within it rather than trying to say everyone who's not affiliated, we're going to give an X percent type or treat them consistently.
But we'll bring it back to personnel and see where we can go with it.
Okay. Any other discussion on it this time?
Dr. Seelig, just one change on that, because I didn't see it before. The effective date should be December 2nd, not November 18th. We didn't have the meeting on the 17th.
Okay, those who approved it or made the motion
Yes,
second,
I
agree
did.
with that?
December
We're changing the date from December, on the agenda it says November the 18th, 2008. We're changing that to December the 2nd, 2008.
By the way, Peter, I was going to ask Peter because he did the negotiation. With affiliated with contract, let's say with teachers, because that's the biggest chunk of people, in one group who work for school. If a teacher is hired in April, and then let's say every year teachers get 4% pay raise.
They move on the guide.
They would they get the
full raise,
regardless of when a teacher starts?
If
the following year they get
on June 20th at step 16. 10 days later they'd be on step 17.
But there is a definitive guide.
Yes, that's true.
That's the difference. A big
Okay.
difference.
With that, can I get a roll call vote on C1?
Mr. Binder?
Yes.
Mr. Fallon?
Yes.
Mr. Falzarano?
Yes.
Mrs. Fechner?
Yes.
Mr. Horowitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Mandel?
No.
Mr. Pepe?
Yep.
Mr. Sun?
No.
And Dr. Seelig?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. With that, we can move on to the Ds. We have motions D1 through D14. D14 is on the revised agenda in your package tonight. It's, D14 is revised. There was a D14 on the original agenda, so, and the D14 that's in the packet that you'd be voting on is the revised one. So you have to look at that and make sure you know what's in there.
I'm sorry, Paul.
D14 is revised.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
And it looks to me like what's been revised on it are
Paying $13,000 more.
It was just one check. We added a check.
So it's a small revision in the numbers.
With a very dear $13,000 to somebody.
Yes. True, true, important.
To them, yes.
So with that, does anybody have any of the Ds, the D1 through D14, that they wish to have full yes, Laura? Full
D9, D9 and D11.
I'm sorry, D9,
And D11.
And D11.
D9, and D11. Okay, any others?
And can I
I
move
get
D1 through D8, D10, D12 through D14?
Second.
Okay, now remember your D14 you're voting on is on the revised
Revised,
agenda.
yes.
Any discussion on those that were moved and seconded?
Have there been any other inquiries about D13? That's the computer donations.
No, just a Long Hill group so far.
Okay.
There was a letter, though, right, we received acknowledging.
From them?
I thought there was, wasn't there?
I think there was
Great.
I think there was more than that, if I remember right. The
I'm
Long
just
Hill
trying.
Seniors.
I thought there was some gratitude expressed. And
Yeah, there
Oh,
was.
yes, yes.
There was a. I think there was a formal exchange and.
Oh, yeah, we had a lovely reception by the Long Hill senior citizens who were very grateful for the receipt of these computers.
Good.
They're very happy.
The smiles were from ear to ear.
They were.
They were.
They were very happy.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on the ones that have been moved and seconded? With that, can I get a roll call vote?
Mr. Binder? Mr.
Yes.
Fallon?
Yes.
Falzarano?
Yeah.
Mrs. Fechner?
Yes.
Mr. Horowitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Mandel?
Yes.
Mr. Pepe?
Yes.
Mr. Sun?
Yes.
Dr. Seelig?
Yes. Can I get a motion on D9?
Laura, can I go together or you want them separate? D9 and D11.
Let's do them separately.
Do them separately.
I'll move D9.
Can I get a
Second.
second? D9 has been moved and seconded. It's open for discussion.
I'm not even going to discuss it. However, there is a note from Steve Davies last week's package, I think, that speaks also to the safety of the school. I was very impressed that he took the time out. I don't think it was meant for us, other than for our information, but I guess everyone got it.
Yep.
And somehow or other, if I run into him at school, I would like to tell him how impressed I was that he took the time out, because this is the kind of person I want to see around the school, that he talks about knowing our kids, and that's the best way of keeping them safe. I hope you all read it through and pat him on the back.
Laura, you had a comment?
Yeah, I read that through too, but I actually read it through a month ago. So,
But it's last, yeah, it is last month. It was
so I might need my memory refreshed a little bit, and I just wanted to get this D9 put in context a little bit. Is it relating to that document, or?
In Steve's document, he talks a lot about the need for staff to know the students.
Right, which
He also
I
talks
think
about the need
is
for other security measures, one of which is video.
okay. What kind of cost are we looking at with the surveillance and?
Well, just so you know what the resolution is about, in order to move forward with any of these projects, these type of projects, you have to have it within your long-range facility plan. Right now, we don't have a video surveillance system cost or anything in that long-range plan. And the reason you really want it in the plan is, number one, you need to move it forward with the state, you have to have it in there. But number two, more importantly, is that once it's in the plan, it becomes eligible for state funding, up to 40%. So the resolution is to put this item in the plan. Now, the cost that we've talked about in the past and what we're estimating is probably around $500,000 and down or up depending on what you want.
$500,000 with 40%
For
of the
the
core,
Cadillac
40%
system,
of the, okay.
and then it can be scaled down. You know, that's kind of where we are with that.
Or
But
phased in is a better word.
it can be phased in. We can do a lot of different things with it, but we can't do anything if it isn't in the plan. So this isn't really a resolution to spend any money. This is a resolution to put it in part of the plan. That gives you the option down the road to go forward with the project.
It puts you in a position for state funding, grants, and all
That's
that.
right.
So if the opportunity arises, that everything's in place to go forward.
That's right.
So,
Just to your question though, which was, is that before or after the 40%? That was the cost of the system, and then hopefully we'd get state funding that would cover some of that. I mean, that's the order of magnitude, strictly order of magnitude, plus or minus, 50%. Depending on what
Safety
you
and
actually
security
do.
are one of the higher priority.
That's
items.
correct. Safety and security is one of the higher priorities that
That they have.
that the state will look at for funding first.
There's also some new Homeland Security grants coming out that address specifically this type of.
That's good.
Well, be sure to tap on your resources there, Mr.
Working on
Guppy.
Do you have to
Okay.
identify a year for the long-range plan or cost?
Yeah, essentially when you put it in, you have to identify a year and a cost. They don't hold you to the year, I will tell you that.
But, I mean, are we gonna know what it's gonna look like when it's in the plan? Are you gonna bring the plan back so we can see, how these things are all, what years to go into service?
Yeah, I mean, eventually we have to, if we want to go forward with the project, we have to bring it, obviously, to a committee level. But the plan itself, I mean, I've heard different things about the plan. I can tell you that the last go-around, the state had a lot of problems with it, that their software, and I've been working with it. It is pretty bad, very difficult to, it's not user-friendly. Even the state officials acknowledge that it's not good. But essentially in the law, we were supposed to have every 5 years supposed to do a new plan. Right now, it appears, at least from what my conversations with them, is that the plan is going to be a fluid plan going forward, meaning we make changes as things we need to make changes. I don't know if they're going to have us redo the plan. It's usually if the years end in 5 or 0 is when we have to do the plan, which would be next year. But I haven't heard anything about them asking us or requiring us to do them. But to move the project forward, I would absolutely have to bring it to a committee and the board before we did anything.
I also seem to remember you saying there was some problems getting it approved. There was having some issues with the state in getting the long-range plan submittal approved by them, and the architects are working on that too. And is that something you've seen, or are we still having an issue with?
No, well, across the state, the schools have had problems getting the plans approved because they, quite frankly, are short-staffed. We did have a representative for years. That representative is no longer there. Getting a hold of, we had to pull a few strings to get a hold of someone who actually helped us out. Our issue right now is there was some minor paperwork issues with our plan, which we've addressed already through Don Fier. But our larger issue is unhoused students. We have, according to the plan, even with the revised enrollment, we're short about 120 students that we need to address. Now, that was part of that classroom, part of the classroom project that we approved phase 1 to move out of that section over in the old administrative offices. That will become phase 2 in the 5 classrooms that would address that shortage. That would take us through 2012-13. After that, it looks like it kind of flattens out. But I don't know, the way things are going, we're going to have to do another enrollment review again. And that's D8, by the way.
That's right. Any other questions on D9 at this time? It's been moved and seconded. It's a roll call vote.
Mr. Binder?
Yes.
Mr. Fallon?
Yes.
Mr. Falzarano?
Yep.
Mrs. Fechner?
Yes.
Mr. Horowitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Mandel?
Yes.
Mr. Pepe?
Yep.
Mr. Sun?
Yes.
Dr. Seelig?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Could I then move D11?
Second. I get a second on that. D11 is moved and seconded. Discussion?
Tim, I have a question. This HVAC repair services, is this the repair service you were talking about either last meeting or a couple of meetings ago? Or this is a different?
This is just for a general use.
Just having someone available.
What we're trying to do is get a list of contractors. So if we have an emergency, we don't have to go out to bid. We can get the problem fixed. So we have electrician, plumber, HVAC, correct, Tim?
That's right. This
So
is
that we
as
have
needed.
somebody on board, so we don't have to go through a long process to fix something that's an emergency.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have them already set in place.
Yeah, you're talking
How long
about a
is it?
larger project.
Okay,
This is not
okay,
that.
that's a separate thing, okay.
How long is it expected that this price would stay in effect
For the school year.
for the school year?
Yeah.
So this is a bid that takes us through
June 30th.
June
June
30th
30th,
of
correct.
2009. And
Yeah.
then I presume at that time it would be rebid? Is that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to look at all the three of them that we have. We have the roofing, this
Yeah,
one,
that's right, 'cause
and
I
the
know
plumbing,
there's about
and we're
three of
going to see, we have to kind of weigh and see how it benefited us.
Okay.
I'm not sure. It's kind of a work in progress right now.
Is this tantamount to a state contract?
I'm sorry?
Is this similar to a state contract?
Well, this is actually a public bid.
I understand, but the fact that
They're now an approved,
it
somebody
becomes
for-
Yeah.
approved, so it's very much
Yeah.
like a state contract.
Yes, actually, it's similar to that.
Okay. Can I get a roll call vote?
Mr. Binder?
Yes.
Mr. Fallon?
Yes.
Mr. Falzarano? Mrs. Fechner?
Yes.
Mr. Horowitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Mandel?
Yes.
Mr. Pepe?
Yep.
Mr. Sun?
Yes.
Dr. Seelig?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, with that, we can move into to other business. Does anybody here have other business they'd like to bring up at this time? Okay, hearing none. This then moves into the second opportunity for public comment. Sophia, we appreciate your endurance, our public member. Hearing there's no public comment at this time, can I get a motion to?
On cue.
On cue, I get a motion to move into executive session for the purposes of confidential matters that are governed by attorney-client privileged and personnel and, let me see, anything else? And after, and contracts and negotiations, and after the executive session, action may be taken.
So moved.
Can I get a second on that?
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're in executive session. Thank you.